believe in your destiny and the process of becoming. I'm 25 years old, and I am a cancer of the salivary gland patient. Diagnosed 2 years ago, and on this day, 2 years ago, 26th of October, I was sitting on a comfortable chair, but getting a very uncomfortable hot liquid pumped into my system. It was my first day of chemotherapy. But let me take you back to some time before that day, so we understand why I believe that this journey too was my destiny. Pardon me, I have to do this every few moments because of a lack of saliva, but there's a gain of a lot more, so don't worry, don't feel sorry for me. When I was 14 years old, I tasted my first alcoholic beverage. I wasn't cautious, I wasn't experienced, and I got caught. And in true African culture, I was called to a meeting, and the family was called to discuss issues, and I think a lot of you are familiar with that process. And one of my relatives said to me that he would be surprised if I finished high school the way I was going. I laughed it off because I knew what my destiny was. I had a plan, and I was going to be the UN Secretary General. So finishing high school was the least of my problems, really. And because I had my eye on the prize, I recovered from that incident and many more very easily. I moved high schools 3 times, but despite that, I was top of my class every single time, leading up to the final year, the equivalent of matric. On the final year, I participated in African Schools Debating Championship. I debated for Botswana, and I had the privilege of meeting Nelson Mandela while he was around. And another remarkable thing happened was that I was offered a scholarship to study in a prestigious college in South Africa. That wasn't part of my systematic plan, but I was hopeful that I could be able to accept the scholarship. Unfortunately, my family was not prepared, and I think I look back now and I know it's for reasons of love, but they were not prepared to allow me to move at 17 years old into South Africa to start school on my own over here. So I missed that opportunity. And it was my first time that I was disappointed and depressed and lost hope in my destiny. That was the beginning of my end. I was 18 years old, I was not motivated, I was not interested anymore because I thought, there goes the UN Secretary Generalship. For the first time, I was not first. I was 9th in my class. I don't even know who the guy in 7th place was, and I was 9th in my class. And that year, the government of Botswana introduced a program where the top achievers were given scholarships to any university of their choice. And because they were top achievers and with government funding, there had no problems getting into the Ivy League schools that I always had my eye on. So there we go. I missed my opportunity in a moment because I looked away from my destiny. There was a very important lesson to learn there. But it took me a while to learn it. Precisely, it took me 5 years. So I finished my high school in 2009, and I settled for the University of Botswana, which is a good school, but wasn't the plan, wasn't in my systematic plan. Settled for the University of Botswana, and I studied law. I was a mediocre law student in 2014 when my mother discovered a tumor in my mouth. It had been sitting there, painless, odorless, bloodless, nothing to bother me. But in the eyes of my mother, who was a dentist, you could see that this was a problem. See, we had never spoken about cancer. I knew 2 friends who lost their mothers to cancer, but we wouldn't dare talk about it. And this is why it's so important that it is time to start telling our stories, and I will lead you up to that moment. I was diagnosed with cancer of the salivary gland, which I had never heard of. I had no idea what they were talking about, but there was no fear in me initially. First of all, it was, okay, I just got settled into this new life. Why are you disrupting me again? And that is the process of becoming. And my destiny was written that this was going to happen. I had 2 options. I could either cower into a depressing state again, as I had done before, and let this consume me and define my path, or I could own it. And I decided to do the latter. I had no choice. I lost my hair, I lost my beauty, I lost my smile, I lost everything that I had attached my identity to. So I had to look deep into myself and say, where is my life going? I have this condition, I have this situation. We had no idea how long we were going to fight, and we still don't. We're still fighting. But I know that every day I am living my destiny, and I am owning my destiny. It was a very painful process going through treatment. My parents are both doctors, so they were the first patients. Whenever we walked into a doctor's office, my doctors would begin by talking in medical Greek to them before then translating to me in English that I had cancer or this is what we're going to do. And there were many terms thrown around, and it was very difficult for my parents. Another thing is I have 2 younger brothers who are my everything. And they were at very critical stages of their lives when I was diagnosed. And they kept me going in a very emotional way. They kept me going because I thought to myself, you cannot give up when these boys are looking up to you. My youngest brother was in his first year at the University of Botswana, where I should have been orientating him and teaching him all the cool spots and showing him to the cool kids. But I wasn't there. I was in hospital in Centurion. Far from home, alone, living in a lodge for as long as I could, which was only a week before I was admitted into the hospital, full time. And my brother had to deal with that. And a lot of times he would spend the nights alone at home because my mom and my dad had to be here nursing me because we don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. And my 18-year-old freshman brother had to go to school. I say this was my destiny because I was a mediocre law student and I didn't really read that much. It wasn't really the life I had planned anyway, if I may give an excuse. But my brother is the hardest working student I have ever seen because I wasn't there to distract him. And I wasn't there to teach him my bad habits. He works hard, he sleeps late, he wakes up early, and he is passionate about what he wants because he had that time. And this is why I say this was my calling. When my father called me the day I was diagnosed to tell me that my mother had seen something in my mouth and he needed to see it himself, that was the beginning. Because my mother saw this tumor in my mouth and told my father, before even telling me, told my father, I saw something in her mouth. My father called me, and the first thing I asked him was, where did you get my number from? My father and I were not close at all. In fact, I despised him because I thought that he took away from me that opportunity to go to that school. See how it all connects? That's destiny, it's a journey. I did not like him, and I stayed in the cottage and I saw him as a favor to him. Right now, he is my best friend. Because from the moment that we were told that I had cancer, I became his everything, and he became my biggest support tool. There's nothing that I will need that he will not give. And there is nothing that he will not need, that he wouldn't ask for, and I can be there to provide for him. It's very amazing that I get to provide for my father, who used to be this almighty man. And cancer showed us all the human side that we were hiding from each other. Pardon me. Our family is closer than ever now. Because of this diagnosis, and this is why I say that this is my destiny. Allow me to remind you back to that opportunity that I had. The opportunity to study in South Africa for 2 years meant that after that, I was going to proceed to study in an Ivy League university in the United States of America or in the United Kingdom. That's who they partnered with. And it was guaranteed, once you get into that college, you move on, right? Where would I have been in 2014 had I had that opportunity? Far away from my mother, who looked into my mouth and realized that I had a monster growing inside me. This was my destiny. After having survived treatment and gone back to school, I was redefined because it was no longer about the person you saw in the mirror. It was about me inside. And I'd never presented myself like that to my peers or to anybody. I always presented myself on the outside. I had to redefine my destiny. I had to redefine my path. And it is then that I began to share my story in a series of booklets titled Facing Cancer from Under a Mask. I mean, First of all, who is this person who dares talk about cancer? Was the first response in Botswana. Because cancer was associated with a coffin. But that is wrong. And that is what people did not understand, was that with resilience and with early detection, cancer is curable. And with the hope, cancer is curable. And in the unfortunate event that it does not end in a cure, life is full in those moments. I have lived a full life ever since 2014. I would not be on this platform had I not had a cancer diagnosis. And though I do not know where I will be 2 years from now, what I will be doing, I can tell you that every single day I live, I value the time that I have, and I do the most with my life that I've been given an opportunity to relive and to redefine. And it is about time we share our stories, and it is about time we take control of our challenges and redefine our futures. Thank you.